Well, friends, we're going to be referring to this article now. And the first of the three things facing our president as he goes back to the White House has to do with the anxiety in the Gulf. What a terrible tragedy that is. The fish, the turtles, and the pelicans all are dying down there. Many will be dying offshore, way out there because of what's happening. I want to ask Jack. Is this tragedy mentioned in the Bible? Things like this mentioned in the Bible, Jack?
Oh, Rexella, immediately I thought about Revelation chapter 8, verse 8, and this is during the 7-year period of tribulation of Revelation chapter 6 to 18. And when I saw that fire out there in the Gulf, consuming that oil, that verse hit me. There was fire in the sea, and 25% of the livestock and fish, life in the ocean, died. Now that's after we're gone, but we're beginning to see the effects of it and how it could happen in the future in a greater way. But then, by the time we get to Revelation 16, verse 3, every living creature in the sea died. That could come through the torpedoes and the atom bombs that are being exploded in the oceans, plus more rigs failing. Whatever it is, the Bible predicts this very thing.
Oh my, the Bible is up to date. I tell you, God knew that this would happen, and so he placed this in the Bible so that we would understand. Well, we're going to the number 2 problem facing the president as he went back to the White House, and that has to do with North Korea. Take a look. U.S. demands war response over Korea warships sinking. And again, North Korea edging toward war. North Korea warns it will use nuclear weapons if invaded. And U.S. South Korea to hold joint naval drills. Well, there's only one question to ask, Jack. Will North Korea go to war? What do you think? Here's this tiny little area on the earth. Will they really take that atomic weapon and go to war? What do you think, Jack?
He's a maniac like Ahmadinejad of Iran, and he's even supplying his weapons to Syria and to Iran. Yes, they will go to war. Now, it could be a limited war right now, but they have a lot of strategic nuclear weapons, and of course we've had thousands of our men stationed there for years to protect South Korea, but recently they torpedoed a South Korean ship. That's what this is all about. Now, if we retaliate, they say we're going to use nuclear weapons, and they've got them, and it could be a terrible turmoil in that part of the world. Now, this could just be one of the wars, not the big one called Armageddon of Revelation 16:16, but a limited war mentioned by Jesus in Matthew 24, verses 6 and 7, when he said there should be wars and rumors of wars. Nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Said it again in Mark chapter 13, verses 7 and 8. Nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. But there's an hour coming when Russia will make a move against the Middle East with an Arab alliance, and then China will move, the kings of the East, kings, plural, Revelation 16:12, and North Korea could be united with them at that time for the largest armies in the world that come down to the Middle East in chapter 9 of Revelation, verse 14 to 18, to slay a third part of mankind. So it'll be one thing or the other. Keep your eyes fixed, because it all means one thing. Christ is about to return. Why? Jesus said in Luke 21:9, when you hear of wars and commotions, wars and terrorism, wars and revolutionaries, don't be frightened. These things must first come. Why? When they're happening, verse 27, then shall the Lord appear in the clouds of glory. And he says in verse 28, when you see these things beginning to happen, and they are, look up, your redemption draws nigh. That's the redemption of these bodies, Romans 8:23. When he says, come up hither, Revelation 4:1, and we sweep through 187 trillion billions of miles in 11/100ths of a second, the twinkling of an eye, 1 Corinthians 15:52. Keep looking up, he's coming.
Oh, yes, he is, and I love what Jesus said. Don't let your heart be troubled. Jesus knew all these things were going to happen because he's God. And he said, don't let your heart be troubled, but look up. If I go away, I'm coming back again, and we're going to show you in a moment how you can be prepared for that wonderful return of our Lord. And now, friends, let me just say that our new offer is flying out of here, and for good reason. Take a look at the preview.
What's different about the Obama administration is the sheer number of radical people he's assembled at very high levels. Obama is probably the most radical president that has ever sat in the White House. Barack Obama has surrounded himself with probably the most radical group of advisors of any previous administration in American history. Since taking office in January 2009, President Barack Obama has made a number of high-level, controversial appointments. He is choosing people who will radically change America. During the election campaign, Barack Hussein Obama repeatedly said, "We're going to change this country and change the world. We need change, real change, now." That's found on almost every page of Rules for Radicals from Saul Alinsky's book. And by change, Saul Alinsky meant a revolution, a socialist communist revolution. President Obama has appointed an unprecedented number of people to czar positions, which require no Senate confirmation. America's in trouble. God help America.
Ooh, that says it all. When I saw this, I could not believe it. And you really don't want to put off making the order. There's the 800 number, and there is the address. And by the way, we do have enough supply now, Jack, to get them out.
We
ran
ordered
out.
10,000 more, yeah.
Yes.
And by the way, 32 czars, one of them says, my hero is Mao Tse-tung, who murdered 100 million Chinese. And then we have Van Jones, the communist, who said it was Bush and the CIA who planned 9/11 and had nothing to do with the Muslim. It goes on and on. You need this material.
Oh, yes, do not, as I always say, put off making that call. The 800 number, there is the address, and we promise to get it in the mail as soon as we can. All right, friends, we're going to be going back to that all-important article which said Obama returns to the White House facing crisis on 3 fronts. Now we're going to consider the third one, which is the protest in Gaza and beating up on Israel. Beating up on Israel. Let's go on to the next one. Lieberman, Palestinian Authority behind campaign to smear Israel. And again, Israel is facing an attack of international hypocrisy. Not everyone wants Israel to live in peace. Oh, Allah, take this oppressive Jewish Zionist band of people and kill them down to the very last one. And the other one is saying the Zionist entity is not legitimate and will not be legitimate in any situation. There are some
Islamic clergymen saying
all right,
kill all the Jews.
Here's a study. Hamas used civilians as human shields. Oh, I can't believe that. In Gaza. And Yemen, Al-Qaeda training Gaza groups to attack Israel. And Iran says they can destroy Israel in a week. 1 week. Here, the Turkish Prime Minister says Israel will drown in blood. And Syria asked Russia to lean on Israel. Netanyahu vows no Jerusalem split. And once again, their Prime Minister Netanyahu turns to the Bible in tussle over Jerusalem. Now, here you see an article by Zuckerman in U.S. News and World Report, how not to play the Mideast game. Jerusalem is not just another piece of territory on a political chessboard. It is integral to the identity and faith of Israel. Jerusalem, so very important to them. Obama promises Arabs Jerusalem will be theirs.
God forgive them.
And Washington think tank predicts new Mid-East war. Perez warns of nuclear Mid-East. And here you see Israel as a security asset for the United States. Now, there are 60 admirals and generals who signed this, saying that they are our greatest asset. They are the one liberation and democracy over there in the Middle East, and they are our asset. A big, big question, why? Why has Israel always been hated? This is hard for me to understand, Jack.